I've had the Chase Ink Cash for a little bit over a year now, and I think it's time to take a serious look at whether or not this card is actually still worth it for me. Now, this video is not going to be a review of this credit card breaking down every single little detail about it, but instead, I'd rather this one just come from the heart, talking about my experience with this card personally after getting to use it myself for a year. With that being said, let's go ahead and do a deep dive on how much value this card has given me so far and will continue to give me in years to come. In reality, there are really only two main ways to earn any cashback or points from this card, that being from 1, the welcome bonus, or 2, from the spending you put on this card. While yes, a lot of other credit cards out there will give you credits and other benefits to help you maybe offset the annual fee on it, the Chase Ink Cash is a no annual fee card, meaning that there's not going to be too many strings attached to it. But let's go ahead and get started talking about the welcome bonus. I personally opened this card on December 30th, 2022, which was during this card's all-time high 90,000 point welcome offer for spending $6,000 on the card in the first 3 months of having it. Funny enough, that offer came back in 2023 as well, and it actually just ended a few days ago at the time you're recording this. But the base offer on this card is still for 75,000 points after spending that same $6,000 in 3 months. Now, missing out on 15,000 points may not sound like a ton, but considering these are Chase's ultimate rewards points at a cash rate that's at least $150 worth of value, but you have the ability to make those points worth up to $300, $500 or more, depending on how you redeem those points. And we'll touch on how you can do that in a little bit as well. Quick note here, if by the end of this video you are thinking about applying for this card, it would mean a ton to me if you went ahead and checked the links down in my description to find the highest public welcome offer for this card at the time of you watching. And if you do end up using that link to apply, it directly supports me at no cost to you, so it's a win-win. While we're on the topic of the welcome bonus, there are a couple of other things I want to mention real quick, and this will be particularly helpful to those of y'all that are worried about applying for this card not during an elevated welcome offer period, because luckily there are a few ways to reconcile this. For one, you're able to get the welcome offer on a Chase Ink business card every 2 years, which is similar to Chase's Freedom cards on the personal side, and then the Sapphire cards you have to wait 4 years in between bonuses, but you get the point. But in order to do this, you can't be currently holding a Chase Ink Cash to re-get the bonus on it. So what you'll have to do is product change this one to a different Chase Ink card, and then you can reapply fresh for the Chase Ink Cash to lock in the welcome offer on it again. But if instead you were somebody that didn't want to manage multiple card accounts, especially multiples of the same one technically, what you can do instead is apply for the card under different businesses. So for example, I personally applied for this card as a sole proprietor the first time I applied for it, meaning that my name is written on the card and everything like that, and I applied using my social security number to get it. However, I also have an LLC, so technically at this point I could go in and reapply for this exact same card under my LLC instead, and they treat those as separate products, meaning that I could get the welcome bonus multiple times depending on how many businesses I technically own. I personally haven't felt the need to do that yet. I also just don't have that high of spend to be constantly adding new Chase Ink cards, but maybe one day I will. Okay, enough about the bonus. Let's talk about how much value I personally got from this card by spending on it this year, outside of the bonus, I guess. Just for reference, so you don't have to go look this up yourself, this card earns in the following categories. For one, it's going to give you 5x back on the first $25,000 spent in combined purchases at office supply stores, internet, cable, and phone services, as well as 2x back on the same $25,000 worth of combined purchases at gas stations and restaurants. And then lastly, of course, 1x back on everything else. So obviously the main reason that people go to apply for this card, for the earning categories at least, are going to be for those 5x categories that you can't really find on any other card. And theoretically, that makes this card super useful, makes those earning categories super sought after, but there's a little bit of a catch to that. Let's talk about the 5x back on internet, cable, and phone services. Personally, I've only ever really found it useful for the first two, internet and cable services, but not so much phone services. And come to think of it now, the 5x back on internet and cable services for me is no longer valuable because all of that is paid through my rental portal. So I'm not going to actually be getting 5x back on those purchases anymore like I used to. But speaking about the phone services in particular, a lot of times I think people get this card assuming that now they're going to get 5x back on those purchases, which is great, but this card does not offer cell phone protection. So that's a big catch there. Yes, with this card, you're going to be getting 5x back on all of your phone bills. But if you're somebody like me who has the Capital One Venture X or another card that gives you that cell phone protection, I'm willing to take a lower rate back on those purchases in order to not have to pay for cell phone protection through my service provider. So I guess that is just a little bit up to you there, but it's important to note that, yeah, it sounds nice to get 5x back, but there's more to that than meets the eye. On that same topic though, the Chase Ink Preferred is obviously not a card we're talking about here today, but it's a card that does give you 3x back on cell phone services, and it also gives you that cell phone protection. So for me, one day I could see myself adding that card, and theoretically that would be the main category that I personally used it for. With all that that being said though, when it comes to earning categories, this card really doesn't do much for me anymore. And honestly, I just put smaller subscriptions on it in order to keep it active and in good graces with Chase. Getting into the actual numbers here to make this more concrete for you though, in 2023, I spent a total of $6,801.64 on this card, and that's really just enough to hit the welcome bonus, as you can tell. $6,000 of that was towards the welcome bonus, and then $800 or so was just towards normal spending. With that amount of spend, I earned 10,529 points without the sign-up bonus of 90,000 points, which we're gonna add back in later. So obviously this card just really did not get much use from me at all. So with that being said, obviously this card is not going to ever be a super high earner for me personally, but even for just the use case of a welcome bonus, this card can be super nice, especially when you take into account that this card is earning Chase Ultimate Rewards points, which can then be transferred to your personal Chase cards or your higher tier Chase cards in general to then transfer out to travel partners and get a ton of value for those points. However, me personally, I have 5 Chase credit cards now, so keeping track of all of those is something that I have to really take into consideration. And that's why I personally choose to use Max Rewards to help me with this. Max Rewards is an app that allows you to pool all of your credit card information, even if those credit cards come from a multitude of lenders, all into one place, so you can see your total point balances, total card balances, bill due dates, and much more all in one app. One of my favorite features about the app is that it does tell you what card to use depending on what category you're spending in. For example, 5x back on office supply stores, Max Rewards would tell me to use the Chase Inc. Cash in that situation. But even better, it actually even tells you what card to use depending on the exact location that you're shopping in. Another really helpful tool that I've personally used a lot is their welcome bonus tracker that allows you to track the amount of spend you have going towards a welcome bonus for a specific card. And this is really helpful because not every lender gives you easy access to that information. Max Rewards also has a paid tier called Max Rewards Gold that allows you to not only automatically activate your quarterly rotating categories on your cards like your Chase Freedom Flex, but will also automatically activate your credit card offers for you, which can give you some savings you didn't even know about. This is just scratching the surface of what the app can do, but if you want to try out even just the free features, please be sure to download the app through the link in my description. And whenever you sign up for the app, enter the promo code Spencer to give you a 1-month discount on a Max Rewards Gold subscription if you ever do decide to upgrade. Thank you to Max Rewards for sponsoring this video, but let's get back to the content. Now, speaking of Chase points, I want to do a quick section here dedicated to the value of Chase points, since that is such a key factor of this credit card. The Points Guy values Chase Ultimate Rewards points at roughly 2 cents per point, making them one if not the most valuable point ecosystems in the game. However, the exact value that you get for your Chase points is going to completely depend on your redemptions. Whenever you're redeeming your Chase points, you have 3 main options for them. You have your fixed value non-travel redemptions, so stuff like cashback, gift cards, Amazon, etc. And for those, you're going to be getting anywhere between 0.8 and 1.5 cents per point, depending on what cards you have with Chase. But just think of this category as being cashback at 1 cent per point, and you should be set there. You also have a fixed value redemption through their travel portal, and that's going to be anywhere from 1 to 1.5 cents per point, again, depending on what cards you have. So for example, if you didn't have a Chase Sapphire branded card or the Chase Inc. Preferred, the max value you could get through the travel portal is 1 cent per point. With the Chase Sapphire Preferred or Chase Inc. Preferred though, you would get 1.25 cents per point. And with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, you get 1.5 cents per point. And then in the last category, you have the uncapped value redemptions, which is going to be through transfer partners. In order to transfer out to transfer partners though, you will have to have one of those 3 cards I just mentioned, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Sapphire Reserve, or Chase Inc. Preferred. And this is really where that 2+ cent per point value comes from. But don't get it twisted. It does not mean that every transfer partner is going to give you that kind of value. Each hotel and airline that they're partnered with has some sweet spot redemptions that you personally have to go and figure out yourself. Of course, I try to cover as much of that as I can on the channel, but just so you roughly know, the best hotel partner with Chase is going to be Hyatt, and the airlines you want to be targeting are going to be those international airlines like Air Canada or Air France or what have you. Like I mentioned earlier, I do have 5 different Chase credit cards right now, 3 personal and 2 business, but the cool thing about their ecosystem is that yes, on their business credit cards, you can transfer your points to your personal credit cards and vice versa. So that means that the 100,000+ points I've earned on this card in the first year were able to be transferred out to my Chase Sapphire Preferred, or what is now my Chase Sapphire Reserve, and then out to travel partners to get a ton of value for them, even though I don't have the Chase Inc. Preferred on the business side, which helps you to be able to build whatever setup best suits your needs. Also, I didn't just want to pull that 2 cent per point number out of thin air, so I'll give you an example of a flight that I booked to Croatia, in which I got that 2+ cent per point value. So that flight to Croatia had a cash value of about $2,762. This is just one way, mind you, but the points that I had to use to get there through Air France was 68,000 points plus $220 in taxes and fees. So then taking the total cash price, subtracting out the taxes and fees that I had to pay by booking in points, and dividing by the total points, multiplying by 100, I got a final cent per point value of 3.74 cents per point for that one leg of the flights. This is just one example, and it's an international business class flight, which obviously we're not taking very often, but it at least shows you the value that you can get depending on what travel partners you use. I also have booked a lot of Southwest flights in the past, and those don't ever give me more than like 1.4 cents per point. But at the end of the day, I think you should be using your points in whatever way can help to supplement your life cost in some degree. So if you're traveling only domestically in an economy, using your points in that fashion is completely fine in my books. Now, that's a lot of numbers I just threw at you, but let's get into some of the more arguably important numbers here, that being the total amount of value I've gotten from this card in the first year of having it. Keep in mind that year one is always going to provide you with the absolute most value from a credit card, and that is because of the welcome offer. So with that being said, let's just start there. With the 90,000 points that I earned from the welcome offer, plus the 10,529 points I earned from spending in the earning categories on top of that welcome offer, I earned a total of 100,529 points from the sign-up bonus and just other spending. At 1 cent per point in cashback form, that would be worth $1,005.29. At 1.5 cents per point through the travel portal, which I can get because I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, that is a total value of $1,508.94. And then at an estimated 2 cents per point when transferring my points out to travel partners through my Chase Sapphire Reserve, that would be a total value of $2,010.58. That's a lot of value in year one, obviously, but we're not going to always get that much value in years to come. So let's talk about that. What value would I get after year one? If you took away all of the welcome offer points as well as the spend that I needed to do to hit the welcome offer, with the subscriptions and stuff I have on it, I would maybe earn like 5,000 points roughly every year after this if I don't change my spending habits, which is only worth $50 in cash back, $75 through the travel portal, and $100 through transfer partners, again with my Chase Sapphire Reserve. And obviously that's a lot less value. But then again, this is a no annual fee credit card. So even if I just put one charge on this card every single year to keep it active, it's going to be giving me positive value. But is that really worth keeping this card open just for, that small amount of points? Let's discuss this further. The real question that a lot of us like to ask here is, will I be keeping or canceling this credit card? The bottom line is that this card has no annual fee, and I've never personally recommend that you close your no annual fee credit cards unless you have a really good reason to. I can keep this card active with just a couple of charges on it every single year, and since I have a couple of subscriptions set on it, that won't be an issue for me at all. But all these numbers just go to show you in broad daylight that this card was mainly in addition to my setup for the welcome offer. Now, does this all mean that this card is a bad card for you to apply for though? I would say not at all. Even if you did just apply for the welcome bonus, it obviously serves that purpose very well. And the fact that you can get multiple welcome bonuses on this card is just another reason to consider it. And remember too that this is a business credit card, so it serves more purposes than just being there for the points. For example, I could technically use this card if I ever did have some big purchases coming up, which would increase my credit utilization on my personal cards. If I put it on this business card instead, the personal credit bureaus will never see that information. So even if my utilization was 50% on this card, that wouldn't affect my personal credit score, even though if I put that on a personal card, it would drop my credit score dramatically. Not to mention, like I just said, I'm somebody with 12 credit cards, which means that every one of my credit cards generally serves one very specific purpose, this one being mainly for the welcome offer. But you may very well be sitting there saying like, oh yeah, I could use those 5 and 2x categories, which would make this card much more valuable for you, and I think another good reason to apply for it. At the same time, you may not be somebody that wants to manage multiple different credit cards, but if you're watching to this point in the video, I assume that you're more an advanced user in the credit card space, and I assume you can see the value that this card does provide. As I mentioned earlier, if you are somebody considering applying for this credit card, it'd mean a ton to me if you could check out the links down in my description to do so. And if you want to learn more about the value that I got from all 10 of my credit cards in 2023, broken down in a similar fashion to this, be sure to go ahead and click into this video next. As always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.